Planet of the Apes, 2001 by Tim Burton.
One of your favorite movies when you were under five.
Unfortunately, though, I watched it like just the past 2 months ago, and I can't tell you a single thing that happened to it that was even remotely rememberable or important in terms of story. It was a completely forgettable film.
No, no, I
Oh, wait,
remember it.
wait, wait. There's one memorable scene, and that is some weird dance ritual scene with this big fat orangutan sitting in his bed and this little chimpanzee chick dancing. It seems like they're gonna get ready to do it. I'm just like,
Yeah.
what is going on with Tim Burton?
I think he was portraying the seedy side of the political class.
But what happened in the movie? What remotely?
Well, Marky Mark is part of the space team
But
that
why?
have chimps.
But why? Why
And
do they have
it's
chimps?
exploration, and they explain in there how they're training the chimps because they've trained them to fly some of the modules that
They're the canaries, basically,
right.
for coal mines, which is disturbingly morbid. Because the things with the canaries in the coal mines is you drop the canary in the coal mine, if it dies, you don't go down there.
Right.
But they all get attached to this one ape, so Marky
No,
Mark.
just Marky Mark gets attached to that one ape, and it flies off and can't find his way back, and he goes, "I gotta go get him." And so he's not supposed to. That's the reason the apes are there. Is if something dangerous
And
happens, they
then
can get swallowed up in this stuff. So he breaks the rules and goes after him, and ends up
and he crash lands on this planet that doesn't look anything like Earth in terms of anything near it or structure of the planet or everything basically. And he is so already you're like, oh well, that's not Earth because there's like planets with like thousands of rings around them, and you're just like, okay, so it's not Earth. And then they're all like, all right, we're gonna have an adventure. We're gonna, but it's not nearly as fun because the humans can already talk, so there's no like reason for Marky Mark to really save these people aside from just stopping them from being slaves.
yeah.
Like otherwise, it's not like there's gonna be a. It's like if they're freed, it's like all right, ending. But if they're freed while they still can't talk, there's much more story that you
Yeah,
can have
it's
after
like this
that.
self-imposed sort of lack of weaponry and all this that they've got language, they've got the sophistication, they should be. We find out later that they've got the ability to weave uh, and so they understand technology. They have certain capabilities, but they're not building weapons to defend themselves against monkeys that barely have opposable thumbs.
They don't. The monkeys, the apes
Apes.
in this movie don't even have guns though.
Yeah,
So it's like you're
they've
you're
got
even.
brute strength, and
You're
they seem to
basically
be
even.
better organized and armored. And some of the armor that they've
The
got,
armor is really cool looking. I'd
it
say
is
art design wise, this movie is very interesting looking. That's where it ends.
that they somehow have the ability to create this artistic armor in metal, but they haven't quite made weaponry of that sophistication.
Um, and then and then you find out that the big spaceship that Marky Mark comes from is what crash landed on the planet hundreds and
Long,
thousands of
long,
years
long,
ago.
long time ago, and that the apes there are descendants of the experimental apes that were on board.
They all come from Koba in the new series, basically. If you want to equate them,
Yeah,
Koba is the one with all the scars, and he was the heavily experimented
yeah.
on one.
So through
Um,
many adventures, now again, the bright spots in this movie.
is Tim Roth because of the
No,
over the top acting. He's the best part because he's the only memorable part.
no. Tim
What
Roth was
what
painful to
does
watch,
what
and
does Marky Mark say that's memorable? Aside from lines that were just taken from the other movies.
I really have nothing to say about his performance. But Tim Roth's performance was so over the top; it was painful to watch because everybody else was doing a sort of nuanced and believe and trying to portray something a little more serious and dramatic. And Tim Roth came in
He was
he
the
could have a
Neanderthal.
twisty mustache. He would have it, and he was way out from what everybody else was doing. And it
But
stuck out like a sore thumb.
that's why it's the best
The
part.
shining feature in that movie was Paul Giamatti.
I was gonna say him also.
Yeah. Who's always fantastic.
Though I'd say the entire reason why I like Tim Roth's performance is because of that last scene that he's in. Because it's basically the mental breakdown of a person who already had a mental breakdown a long time ago. And I just thought that was... It was so over the top that it was hilarious. That's why I think his performance was the perfect part in the movie. And I like that it seemed like once all the apes finally did kind of realize how far off he was, they were all like, he's really kind of the uncivilized one in this entire culture. He's the reason why we're still doing this. And, I can't remember his name already. The guy who plays Taylor. Charlton Heston. I've had all these other names.
Okay, yeah, there's a point where there is a hidden elder somewhere that advises. And was Tim Roth Caesar?
No.
Caesar.
Caesar
what was
wasn't
Tim
in the
Roth's
movie.
name in the movie?
Who cares?
Okay, General Zod. So, but he goes to him for counsel and all that, and when he goes back, it's Charlton Heston. That was a really cool scene. Charlton Heston as the head chimp that is advising his son. Wasn't that his father?
Probably. Who
and
cares?
Shows him. He talks about man as they've visited before, and that they were dangerous, and warns his son about that, and shows him a gun, and so Tim Roth takes the gun.
To me, that's the best part of the movie in terms of just good quality, because it was a nice scene. It was a good scene, except for the part where Charlton Heston has to reuse his line. To me, the Planet of the Apes movie is the worst example of doing a remake and then putting in lines from the originals just to put them there.
Yeah, I think there was a scene in there about, get your damn dirty hands off me, you dirty human.
Yeah, they were all... to me, those stuck out more...
there was some cheesy stuff in there,
and then there was just stuff where it's just
it
like...
It couldn't stand on its own. Yeah. It didn't attempt to do anything fresh.
And then Marky Mark...
Well, although, I can't say that. It was such a breakaway from the original movie, but it just seemed like there wasn't a vision there for a story.
Let's just say... Let's finish up the story first. Then Marky Mark, after freeing the humans... who all the apes were probably like, man, this Marky Mark guy is dangerous. We need to wait until he leaves, and then put them right back into slavery. He flies off into the sunset, goes through the vortex, doesn't go back to the ship.
He defeats the apes by turning on the spaceship and blasting them all with the thrusters from the spaceship that they were able to turn on after 1,000 years.
And then the big black guy dude, who's awesome, is in the movie, and he was, to me, another really good part of that movie, just because he's awesome. Anyway, Marky Mark flies off into space, and you're like, alright, that'd be a nice way to end the movie, him flying back to the spaceship and maybe just stopping all that from happening. Yeah, he did, just as a nod to the originals, no real reason for it.
What's her name?
And then...
Tim Burton's wife.
Yeah.
Dressed as a monkey.
Bellatrix. She's that one lady in that one thing. Anyway, Marky Mark flies off into the sunset with the baby chimp who disappears all of a sudden whenever he lands back on Earth. He, air quotes,
he sees a sort of Lincoln Memorial type of thing, and as he's running towards it, cop cars are pulling up and around, and he looks up at the Lincoln Memorial, and it's Tim Roth.
No, it wasn't Tim Roth. It was just a chimpanzee.
So it looked like...
They might have done that, but the reason why that doesn't work at all is because he wasn't on Earth.
Right.
At all.
Yeah. So he flies back there.
To me, it's almost as if Rise of the Planet of the Apes works better as a prequel to this movie, as if that was like, as if that was what was happening while he was out in outer space.
This one just should be considered something completely separate
I
and
know.
nothing to do with anything of the franchise at all.
To me,
Yeah,
to
and
me
all
though,
the apes standing around with cop uniforms on and driving the cars,
yeah.
they looked ridiculous. It was just such a stupid
But
ending.
I have to say, it's not the worst in the series, in the entire
Yeah,
series.
it is.
No, it's not.
Yes,
To
it
me,
is. It had more internal inconsistencies, worse dialogue, worse plot, worse
to me
story,
though,
worse.
is that it's so forgettable though that it's just to me it's just there. It's like it kind of needed to happen for them to decide
Right,
to
but
do Rise of the Planet of the
there are
Apes.
things in all of the other movies up to that point that make them memorable and make them. Uh, the, the other thing that's missing from the 2001 movie is some kind of social
Plot.
commentary. There's not a deeper theme to it. It's just sort of a shallow adventure.
Which Rise of the Planet of the Apes does have. It has the whole pet, like having an exotic pet kind of social plot, and then it also has should we modify creatures and humans to make them better plot. But what do you think Planet of the Apes 2001 got on Rotten Tomatoes?
38.
45%.
It got more than that.
Yeah, we didn't talk about Battle. What did
Yeah,
that get?
Battle got
38.
38.
All right. Rise of the Planet of the Apes, to me, the best film in the franchise so far.
Yes, the most modern. Until this weekend.
Yeah. Do you want to explain it? Or I'm the one that saw it most recently. I can't remember any of the people's names except for the apes. So I guess that's
you
the
got
bad thing.
Caesar. He meets Zaya. Well,
Okay, no.
okay. Well,
All right.
first you've got
You got this
Harry
opening.
Osborn.
No, we've got this opening in the jungle where there's all this nice little ape pack group. What are those called? Who knows? And they're sitting there, and then they all just freeze and start looking around, and then this car bursts through or something like that. A bunch of people burst through, and they're capturing the apes. It's kind of like the human part in Planet of the Apes, but done better than in the 2001 Planet of the
Right.
Apes.
You've got your chase down and capture scene. So
And
they
then you
captured
see
these
this, and then you
chimps.
see the eyes of this female chimpanzee looking through this little crate, because a bunch of the other apes managed to escape except for a couple, and her included. And then it cuts to her eyes now in 2011, and she has these green flecks in her eyes, and that's because of the ALZ 112, which is supposed to be a cure for Alzheimer's. And what it ends up doing is making the apes smarter, and that's why they're using it on apes, so then they can see if it's actually doing anything good.
So then she freaks out, and
Well,
they can't
hold on.
explain why.
The reason why she was the perfect candidate to show off to investors was because she managed to complete the something tower in 15 moves, which is a perfect score, and she's doing all these wonderful tests. And then while they're trying to get her out, while James Franco is doing his speech about how this could be the cure for Alzheimer's, this would be great, blah 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 blah. She breaks out from the other two guys who are trying to save her. Which one guy I really like in the movie, but he was really underused. I think he only had like a couple scenes, and it's the other doctor who puts down all 12 chimps after she jumps through the glass in front of all the investors and then is shot killed because she's freaking out. And you find out it's because she just gave birth to her baby.
Yes. So, and this baby
Worst timing ever.
has been absorbing all of the experimental genetic drug and everything, and so he is actually permanently changed. He's just smart.
He keeps on learning farther than any of the ALZ 112 chimps did, because they then go a step. They then, whenever his James Franco's father has Alzheimer's, and that's why he's working on this drug so much.
And once they say they're going to end the program, he steals some of the canisters and begins experimenting on.
No, because whenever he steals the canisters, it's 5 years later.
Right.
He's told to cancel the program way before that. Like, they keep on working on the program, it's just that you have to put down those chimps, tweak it a little bit, and then work on different chimps. Or no, it's like, tweak the experiment, then we'll study it to see if it's ready for chimp trials. So they only test this on chimps, so I want to know why it worked on orangutans and apes. I mean gorillas.
Well,
I guess it's close enough.
Yeah.
Anyway,
they're all from a common ancestor, and depending where you are on the chain is how it affects you.
So you've got.
I'm throwing that in there as my own sort of excuse for the film.
Go ahead. I don't care. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Throw out whatever you want. I accept the fact that the Mutos in Godzilla have an armored shell, so that
This is the point of suspended disbelief.
That's because the opening of this film is the weakest part of the movie because it's really hard to sell, but after you get past the opening of the film, it is
in its own context. It's not that hard to buy because you're willing to give this type of movie a little leeway with the science facts. You know that there's a deeper commentary coming.
So what ends up happening is there was this baby chimp by Bright Eyes, which is the mother chimp's name. And all the chimps are put down except for the baby because the other scientist dude is like, I put down the other 12. I can't do it. You be my guest. And he places the thing down next to James Franco and he's just like, I guess I'm taking it home. And he takes it home. You find out that his father has Alzheimer's. And then he is named Caesar by his father. And you find out that he's a fast learner because he already knows how to use a bottle. Which is a bit weird, I guess, but,
Well, no, I mean, baby chimps actually can be taught to use a bottle.
Well, yeah, but it was like the first time they set a bottle in front of him, he picks it up and starts sucking down on it. I don't know, I guess it's fine. But then it shows, like, this little montage of him growing up, and James Franco's like, at age 1, he managed to complete a tower thing in 15 moves. At age 2, he was showing even more brain function and blah, 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 blah. He's a pretty good artist. And then in his 3rd year, he shows more improvement, and he can play a pretty good game of chess. And it shows that... I want to know how he was beaten by a chimp. I mean, he's smart, you can tell that, but I don't think he was that smart yet.
Kids get lucky once in a while at chess games. Like with their Transformer sets when their dad can't tell the different pieces apart.
Hey, I still have a video up on my way older channel that shows me beating you fair and square.
Whatever.
And it's called I'm Epic.
So it's not so far out of reach for
this
chimp to beat him once.
Yeah, but he goes, and he plays a pretty good game of chess, as if he had a challenge. Anyway, so then it shows Caesar, like, stealing a cookie because he's a rotten little fart. And it's like a young Caesar. He's 3 years old. Or 5 years old or something, I don't know. And then he decides to break out of the house while James Franco is taking care of his dad because he sees these kids playing.
And wants to play.
Yeah, he wants to play.
He wants to be social because they're social creatures. And he's been locked in his house with
Harry Osborn and a crazy guy.
And John Lithgow.
Anyway, and so he breaks out. He wants to play with these children. What ends up happening is that the children's father, who is this military guy, not foreshadowing, but later on in the movie.
Yeah, he turns out to be an airline pilot.
No, he's like an actual military guy, I thought. Whatever. He like baseball bats Caesar's leg or something. They like stop him from doing any more damage to Caesar. James Franco and old man Pops. And James Franco takes him to this doctor lady that James Franco ends up hooking up with. And she does stitches and stuff, and It's a little kind of funny thing where Caesar's like, you should ask her out in sign language because he's learned how to sign. And, yeah, so they go on a date in the Redwoods, basically. And Caesar asks permission in that cool little way, which I didn't know until this movie. And James Franco gives him permission, and he then runs off. They go find him, and he's climbing one of the redwood trees. And this is the only Planet of the Apes film that I don't think is in New York, aside from 2001.
Possibly.
No, that's a fact.
Okay. Well, you didn't sound like you knew.
I didn't, but then I went through all the other movies except for 2001. Anyway, so he's climbing the redwood trees, and it's showing like all this day, night, rain, storm, snow, blah 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 blah, and then says 8 years later, or 5 years later, whatever. He's like 8 years old or something, and he now looks like Andy Serkis. Like, before he looked kind of like Andy Serkis, but now he looks like Andy Serkis. He looks kind of older. He looks mature.
That's so mean to say about Andy Serkis.
Like, no, you can see it more in the eyes. That's what I mean. And they, in fact, say that they made Caesar look the most human.
I never once thought of Andy Serkis when I was watching that.
You can definitely see it in his eyes. Same thing with Gollum. Anyway.
No, I thought the tracking on the eyes and everything was, it was fantastic. They didn't, a lot of times with the CGI characters in the real life movies, the eyes look glassy. They don't reflect right. They don't look like they're sitting in the head. They look like they were animated separately from the rest of the face. But Caesar, it all sort of blended together very well, and they're very expressive. And
it's because it was Andy Serkis's eyes. They just changed the color. Because it was all motion capture.
Yeah, I didn't catch that. They look like monkey eyes to me. Ape eyes.
Yeah. Anyway, so now he jumps down to James Franco and his girlfriend, who have been together for 5 years, and James Franco still hasn't, married her and moved out of his dad's place and put him in a home.
He just can't commit to anything but a monkey.
Ape. Anyway, and so what ends up happening is, after 8 years, James Franco finally gets the idea to steal the ALZ-112 serum and start giving it to his father. And his father shows massive improvements.
Playing piano. He's
in fact improving even more than they expected. Like, he's getting even smarter. And then it kind of goes downhill a little bit. And, he starts using his fork incorrectly. And both Caesar and James Franco notice. And, then what happens is
he wanders outside and gets in the neighbor's car, the guy that took a bat to Caesar earlier, and the guy comes out and is trying to beat up John Lithgow, who has just driven his car into the car in front of him and in back of him, and then in front of him and then in back of him. And Caesar is becoming a young chimp of age.
Yeah.
And so
he
sees
that as a territory attack.
Right. And he sees this as, someone is attacking his family, and he goes out to protect him, and then
they put him in the...
Well, he goes out and attacks this guy, and the guy's going to press charges for...
I want to say he bit off his finger.
I don't think he bit it off, but he did bite him. And he was ready to do more to him before John Lithgow stops him. And they walk him home and everything. But now James Franco's put in a position where he's got to get rid of Caesar.
And he goes to the chimp sanctuary, where he gets his butt kicked by Rocket, who is this gray chimp. And
Right, he's the alpha.
Caesar is basically going through this very traumatic experience because he doesn't quite understand why he can't go home.
He's the new kid. He's the fish out of water, and he
He's
comes
the new
in wearing
kid.
ugly clothes.
Yeah, he's the new kid.
So
He's
everybody
wearing
makes
these
fun of
human
him.
clothes. He's also not quite understanding why he can't go home. He wants to go home so badly.
And he can't relate to these other chimps.
He wants to go home so badly that he uses chalk to draw the window that is in his room at the house. And James Franco, it's implied that James Franco visits him often and stuff, but it's still not the same. Anyway, and you slowly see, after the third visit, I think, James Franco meets with Caesar. No, it's the second one. Maybe he doesn't meet him that often in this movie. It's the second visit, and he's like, we still can't take you home, kiddo. Well, not kiddo, but dude. And then you see Caesar rip off his shirt, not his pants, just his shirt. He never takes off his pants, I don't think, until later on in the film. And then, no, he does take his pants off in that part. And then wipes off the painting of the window, and then you slowly kind of see him just sitting there, and you see something kind of just click, that the world isn't fair, or something.
And he's going to change his situation.
Yeah, and then the A113, ALZ13.
At some point before that happens, there's a orangutan in a cage across from him that knows sign language
called Zaius.
And they connect.
Yeah, and then
so he finds his first ally.
And then the gorilla is named something else. That's from the previous films.
And he's not allowed out of this tiny little cage because apparently he's the Hannibal Lecter. He's sort of kept away from all the other apes, and because he's big and dangerous and nasty tempered.
And there's Cornelia. In the movie, Cornelia she's barely in the movie. You have to watch it like 5 times until you realize, oh hey, Cornelia. And she's going to play a more prominent role, apparently, in the second one, because she is Caesar's wife.
She's going to be laying in repose, giving him bedroom eyes.
Well, he has...
At some point.
He has a couple sons in this movie, I think, actually.
See? Oh, so we're not going to get that scene of them being tossed into a room and forced to breed.
No, because in the next one, they're taking over. Anyway,
so their breeding is actually consensual.
Yeah.
And not manipulated by another species.
Yeah.
Well, good for them.
Caesar's classy in this one. He's classy. He saves her. Anyway, we'll get to that later. Anyway, so Caesar is kind of starting to plan things ahead a little bit. But going back to Franco's side of the story, which really isn't that prominent.
At what point has Malfoy gone through there yet? And
Malfoy's in it. He's sprayed him with water a bit and all that kind of stuff. You can tell he's just a jerk to the chimps. And there's this other guy who's kind of there, and Malfoy makes fun of him and is the bully, even though Malfoy is like 20 years younger than this guy.
Like, his father owns the facility.
I know, but still, you're gonna let a person that's 20 years younger than you bully you?
He's got the leverage. Because this other guy's afraid for his job.
Malfoy has leverage in every movie.
Well,
he needs to get his butt kicked in one of these movies. Yeah. Well, he does in this, actually. Anyway, so...
Yeah, the son of the owner
tends
to be able to
Franco.
Pull shot, to call the shots.
Let's go back to Franco's side of the story, which really isn't prominent, which is kind of surprising in these kind of films. Because usually it's like, oh, CGI characters, let's not focus on them, let's focus on these real-life human characters. But really it's more of Caesar's story, which I really like. Because Caesar, to me, is more relatable than Franco. I don't know. I like Caesar more than James Franco's character. Mostly because he's like a scientist, and I don't know, I don't find scientists that relatable. So he's somehow...
Of course, you're going to identify with the ape, and not the human.
But this is the only movie that you can think of where you're like, wow, I'm kind of rooting for what is kind of the villain. In reality, Caesar is... You know that eventually, since Planet of the Apes, eventually the apes are going to take over the humans. So in a way, you're kind of like, go Caesar, get your freedom, and then you're like, I'm rooting for these guys to get their freedom, and
Yeah,
they're going
but
to take
in
us
none
over.
of the movies is he portrayed as a villain.
Yeah.
Even though he is leading in opposition to most humans, he's not
Not a villain.
he's not the villain. He's not belligerent, and he doesn't have evil intentions. He wants peace. He's just
Especially
not
in
able
this
to
new one.
manage
You can
it.
see that
There's
in the
forces,
trailer.
there's chaos that happens around him.
Voice crack.
Shut up. There's chaos that happens around him because of manipulations happening from other characters.
Yeah.
And in this, he's in a circumstance that is not of his doing, and it's a coming of age story.
Yeah.
And so he's finding his place in this world and in this new situation that he's been thrown into, and finding his role as an adult.
Yeah. Anyway, let's continue with the story. James Franco lets it slip that he tested the ALZ 112 on his father, and the guy's like, what were you thinking? And he's like, but it worked. But his disease came back with a vengeance, so we need to make it a more aggressive virus, and that's the ALZ 113, which is the one that ends up not working on humans later on in the film, as you'll see. So they start testing that. Back to the
And the one scientist sprays himself in the face.
Yeah, that's
Oops.
Let's not go back to the Caesar part of the story because it doesn't really go back to that yet. And then there's this new ape that's called Cobra, and he's got
Not Cobra.
Not Koba, sorry.
Koba.
And he's got this one pale eye, and he looks like he's been through stuff somehow.
That ape has seen some shit. People have done things to him.
Yeah, we don't know if it's people. We don't know if it's other apes.
Well, later on, when he gets the intelligence thing, he recognizes the head of the facility and knows this guy's caused me problems. I'm having nightmares because of this guy, and he's carrying around a lot of resentment that that a lot of people just can't deal with peacefully.
Apparently, in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, he says that the scars are from other apes, but in reality, it's heavily implied that it was actually from human poachers or something. Anyway, so he's being tested on. He's the best results. So they're gonna do more tests with him with the ALZ 113, and this tubes. Then he freaks out and smacks off the mask of the nerdy guy who refused to kill Caesar, and the toxins, I guess you could say, the virus gets into him, and then it's like cuts a couple weeks later, and he's like sneezing, and he's got all this blood, and anyway.
And he goes to the neighbor's house and
sneezes on this neighbor.
Who he turns out to be an airline pilot.
And then it spreads around the world, but that's in the credits. We're skipping far ahead. And then so James Franco takes the new ones to his dad, but his dad's just like, no, don't give it to me. I'm gonna die. I'm dying tonight. So he dies the next morning whenever James Franco wakes up, and then Caesar has stolen this pocket knife from one of Malfoy's friends that Malfoy invites over to have fun. To
impress the girls.
Yeah, to impress the girls.
Because girls dig apes.
Apparently.
It gets them going.
Anyway, so Caesar...
So when you have your first date, go to the zoo.
So Caesar is hiding underneath this, kind of, one of those chair-like things, and he has, like, his old shirt and rags and stuff, kind of hovering over him, and he's, like, telling Malfoy's friend to, hey, come over here, let me see that beer, and then, like, he just chokeholds him for a while, and then after about 15 seconds, he lets go, and you don't really understand why until you realize he stole his pocket knife, and then later on that night, he...
Would have been a lot more useful if he would have stolen the keys.
Well, he knew that Malfoy would have, like, shocked him. The other guy didn't have the shocker thing.
I'm just saying.
Anyway, he's got the pocket knife. He uses sticks from inside his thing somehow to unlock his door so then he can unlock the gate system up top, and he unleashes the giant gorilla. And what I really like about this scene is that Caesar doesn't win over the gorilla by fighting it. He actually doesn't win over anyone by fighting them, except for Rocket, kind of.
Well, he gives this gorilla
freedom.
Freedom, a chance to run around and stuff, and shows, I can do this for you anytime you want. I'm your buddy, right? Yeah, you're my buddy. And
then he throws dung at
so
Rocket.
That's his second ally, and so now he's got brains and muscle on his side.
Yeah. So he throws the dung at someone's dung at Rocket, which is the alpha male, and Alpha's like, what's going on? And
but he's lured him. This isn't like during any kind of playtime or anything with all these. He has lured Rocket out of his cage and into the play area with all the fake trees and everything. And that's
he smacks him upside the head with the gas can, puts it down, looks at him, because he's like, I'm not going to fight you with this. And then he turns around.
All the other apes are in a position where they can see all this happening from their cages.
And then, Rocket's looking around, and he sees the other apes, and then he turns around, and then he sees the gorilla, and he's just like, boom! He, stomps his fist and then nods towards Caesar as if, turn back around to him, and then Rocket puts out his hand like Caesar did to James Franco, and then Caesar just does that little gesture of, go ahead, and now he is the alpha male. And
He's the alpha male without having to really brutally assert his dominance. He did it through manipulation and through alliances.
Mm-hmm. And I like that. To me, that's the best part.
And he showed mercy, and so now he's able to build an alliance with Rocket.
Mm-hmm. And
he's won the alliance of all the other apes that are in the facility.
Eventually, Cornelia is taken by the company that is working on the ALZ-113 to be tested on. Anyway, so he also steals James Franco's cookies. Not James Franco, Malfoy's cookies. And he's handing them out to all the chimps, even Rocket, because he wants to show, I am the alpha male, I'm going to be nice, instead of feeding you slop like you're used to. And so he gives them all cookies, they all eat the cookies, and then the orangutan asks him, why did you give Rocket a cookie also? And he's like, apes alone, weak, apes together strong, and he demonstrates this with sticks and stuff. And then the apes start kind of fighting with each other a little bit, and then the orangutan looks at Caesar and kind of signs apes stupid, as if, they're also stupid. They're stupid.
Zayas gets his zingers in there.
Yeah, but he's an ape also, so he knows that apes aren't really that smart. So what Caesar does is he breaks out, he goes to James Franco's home, he steals the ALZ-13, which makes other chimps smarter than if they were just taking the ALZ-112. And he stabs them, and he kind of just makes this little gas room.
He opens up the canisters.
Yeah,
he doesn't stab the other apes.
He stabs the canisters to open them up, and
rolls them out, and they spew out the perfect dosage to be able to make all the apes smart. And you see them dawning. You see the dawning of intelligence.
Whenever they wake up, they're all kind of looking around as if the world has changed. Even the orangutan, who's already pretty smart. And then he checks everyone's eyes whenever they're walking out, and then he and they all have green flecks. And then they don't explain how the gorilla gets it, and they also don't explain how all the other apes, whenever they finally do break out, they don't explain how all the other apes that they help break out get it also. But I'm assuming since the ALZ-13 is a stronger virus, I'm going to go with, and since it can spread from human to ape, I'm going to say that it can spread from ape to ape also, because the other apes are also kind of starting to get smarter too.
Yeah, since the writers didn't give us that information, we can make it up.
Yeah. Well, they kind of do give you that information in the credits sequence.
Yeah. Well, yeah, for the contagion, yeah, they not so much with how it affects the apes that way. But yeah, we can go with that.
Yeah. We will. My opinion is the only one that matters. Anyway, so I lost where I was in the story.
They're starting.
Oh yeah,
They're gonna break out.
they're not yet. Anyway, Caesar's like all teaching them all how to sign also, and like
Oh yeah, and he's running exercises.
yeah, and like Malfoy's father starts kind of turning around and he's like, "Stop it!" And then they're all kind of playing around and like Caesar's just looking at him and he's looking at Caesar and he turns back around and Caesar turns right back around and is like, "Go on." Um, so he knows something's up. Anyway, so then Caesar stays out one night and Malfoy sees him, and so does the other guy who's 20 years older than Malfoy. Um, and so the guy who's older starts grabbing his tranquilizer dart, but Caesar has purposely put himself to where there's a giant branch in the way, so whenever he gets up there, he won't be able to get shot. So Malfoy is like, "What are you doing?" And he starts shocking Caesar, and then he's like, "Get back in your cell," and like Caesar grabs his arm and then shouts, "No!" and then takes it from him, smacks him. And I'm like, "Yeah!" And then he just starts yelling no to all the other chimps and apes and stuff, and they're all going, "Yeah!" but they're not actually saying anything. They're hooting and hollering. And to me, that's
Right, they're
the
not
best part of
contradicting him.
yeah, that's the best part of the film. It's like the most like stand up and cheer part of the film, even though you're like, "Yeah, go! You're gonna enslave us, crap." Again,
Well, they're winning their own freedom.
Yeah.
They just want to get away. They
Yeah.
want to be their own people. They want
I
to,
know.
be
Anyway,
in charge of their own destiny.
so the guy with the tranquilizer dart is like, "What?" and kind of passes out or something. Anyway, Caesar and the other apes throw them into cells. James Franco manages to get out, and he has his shocker thing again, and Caesar just
Not
sprays him
James
with.
Franco.
Sorry,
Malfoy.
Malfoy. And Caesar, whenever he turns on the shocker device thingy, and goes at Caesar, Caesar just turns on the water and kills him because of all the electricity going through the water, and it shocks him to death. And then that was Caesar's first fatality, basically. That's the first person that he kills. Um, I'm assuming that he killed other people during the uprising by accident or something.
Well, just by course of getting to the forest.
Yeah. Um, and then they're running around and stuff. They then break out. They then free other apes, and they're taking all the things, and they taking off like these spear-like things from the cages that were holding the apes. And meanwhile, Caesar has another group of apes and orangutans, and they go in and they're breaking out all the people, all the apes in the science lab, and Cornelia is one of them, and she kind of looks at him, and he kind of looks at her, and he's like, "Yeah, we'll do things later." And then, you see,
I'm gonna talk to you later, baby.
yeah, and then Cobra,
Don't forget my name.
and then Cobra walks out very menacingly, like kind of hunched over and angry, and you see him kind of looking around. He sees Caesar, and he knows, well, obviously that's the leader, so I'm not gonna mess with that anytime soon. And he does his own thing. He helps the uprising. And then you got this awesome Golden Gate Bridge moment where all the gorillas.
That was a battle. It was
Yeah.
the battle of the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah. Where you got all the gorillas and Caesar on the actual part of the bridge. You got a bunch of chimpanzees on the top of the bridge and a bunch of chimpanzees on the bottom of the bridge. And this is because they don't want to get shot and killed. And so there's this helicopter also flying around that has the doctor guy in it, who's the bad doctor guy. And meanwhile,
Brian Cox.
yeah. And meanwhile, James
the black
Franco.
guy?
It's that guy.
Okay.
Um.
Not Brian Cox.
Meanwhile,
Brian Cox is in charge of the jail facility.
Meanwhile, James Franco is like, "Where the heck is my monkey?" Or ape, whatever. And he's running around and he's like, "Caesar." Anyway, so the gorillas like flip over this bus with Caesar like kind of behind it, going, "Go on, move on." And they're pushing it with all the policemen on the other side of the bridge firing at it, and then all of a sudden, all the chimpanzees start jumping down from the top and then coming from the bottom, and they like are beating up all the police officers, and then the helicopter comes down from the clouds with the doctor in it, and he's like, "Shoot Caesar, shoot that one," and they start shooting at it, and Caesar tries to get them with this chain. He misses though, and then the gorilla from that Caesar wins over pushes him out of the way and then jumps into the helicopter. I'm like, that's awesome.
It's a hell of a jump.
Yeah, he gets shot a couple times in the chest and then is like beating them up, and you feel really bad for this gorilla.
He stood up for his man.
Yeah, and you're just like, oh.
Took one for the team.
Yep.
And took out the threat.
And then the helicopter crashes and is dangling on the bridge, and Caesar walks up to it, and the only survivor is, of course, the doctor scientist dude, and he's hanging on. He's like, come on, grab my hand, grab my hand. And Caesar just is like, looks at him. You can see he raises his hand a little, and he can see that also, and he puts it back down and then walks, and then, like, you just see him turn and then nod. Walks away, and then you see Koba walk up, and then Koba...
And then he knows he's screwed.
Yeah, and...
He's like, this ape hates me. I'm not getting out of this.
And he goes, no, because he already knows what's going to happen, and you see Koba just kind of grin a little bit and then push him off, and then the helicopter crashes into the water, and that's whenever, the apes have won. And then they all go into the redwoods, and James Franco
follows him in.
Gets attacked by Koba, and Caesar just grabs Koba and throws him off him, and then picks him up, and then they both hug, and James Franco's like, come on, you can come back home now, you've won, blah blah blah, and then Caesar hugs him and then whispers in his ear, Caesar is home, and then
dun, he's got language.
Yeah, and then James Franco's like, I thought they were lying, but whatever, and then he's like, well then go home, and then they all start climbing the redwoods, and then you're like, I want to see the sequel.
So finally, a Planet of the Apes movie with a happy ending until the credits roll.
Yep, because...
So, yeah, you find out the neighbor is an airline pilot, and they show, anyone he comes into contact with. Mm-hmm. It's all through graphics and
it's like this
implied airline travel. So everywhere he lands, it shows the disease.
Line.
Yeah, it shows the disease spreading wherever he lands, and then everybody that gets it there spreads it to other people. So
you see all these little yellow lines and yellow dots all over the place, and you're just like, that's spreading to humans and apes, and they're gonna take over, and we're all gonna die. And then let's just set up for the next one.
Okay, so Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
I probably know more than you.
You probably do. So I'll give my overview first. I've only seen one or two trailers. I haven't seen the most recent ones.
I've seen all the TV spots, all the trailers.
We're not talking about you right now.
All the clips.
Let me give my say.
A bunch of featurettes.
I've seen no spoilers.
I haven't seen any spoilers either.
One sentence. That's all I want. One sentence.
Okay, go on. Just say what you've seen.
What I've seen.
What you think is going to happen.
That's what I was going to do.
Go ahead.
Oh, God. Where was I?
Wait, what did Rise of the Planet of the Apes get?
Oh, okay.
What do you think?
I'm going to say 80.
I really liked it, and I think you saw it before. 82%.
No, I didn't. What got a 92? Wait.
We're not saying.
How did it... That's just an anticipation. There haven't been enough people to see it yet.
There's pre-screenings for reviewers.
All right. Well, spoiler, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes got a 92, which is the best of all the movies. But it's over time, once more and more people see it, you get your haters that are voting on there too. So
no, it's not a voting thing. It's like a just reviewers thing. Anyway, go on. Say what you think.
Okay, yeah, separate podcast. You're going to school me on who's the reviewers for Rotten Tomatoes. No, we can't. I cannot speak this long 2 nights in a row.
All right, go on.
My head is swimming. These are probably more words you've heard out of me in your entire life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now say what you think is going to happen in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
I think there's going to be apes in the forest. Humans are going to stumble upon them. Commissioner Gordon is going to try to broker.
Hadn't have gotten the disease.
There's going to be tension between the humans and the apes. The humans are going to blame the apes, even though they're the ones that made the disease, that killed them all off and made the apes smart.
there's going to be a great irony there. There's going to be apes on horseback. Commissioner Gordon and Caesar are going to try to keep everybody from killing each other, but there's going to be apes on one side that want to kill the humans, and because they've got bad memories of what happened to them when the humans were in charge, and humans are going to kill them because, hey, who the hell are they to knock us off the top of the food chain?
All right, let me say what I'm gonna think is gonna happen. Do you think? Do you think any? What in terms of what could be spoilers? What do you think is gonna happen?
I don't know.
You have no clue.
Spoilers. I'm going into this fresh and with an empty slate.
Like just foreshadowing from like the not foreshadowing, but like what could happen based off of past movies.
Some kind of uneasy peace at the end where they're going to be able to interact, but there's still going to be those same tensions there. The danger is going to be there of violence erupting, but there's going to be a coalition of humans and apes that want to keep the peace.
All right. Well, what I think is going to happen, since I've seen more things, a bit more.
And then bald, veiny people are going to come up out of the sewers.
My God, if they do that in the third one, that would be awesome. Even better if they make an Easter egg to that, like one of the people has like a magazine or like a strange fantasy magazine or something with like vein head people on it. Anyway, so what I think is going to happen is that it's been 8 years since it's like been almost 10 years since Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and it was like 4 years fighting the virus and then 4 years fighting each other. So a ton of the human race has died. Only the people who are immune are still alive. What I think is going to happen is that the humans are going to need something, and they're going to have to talk to Caesar to get permission to do it. And what I think is going to happen is that there's going to be a specific ape, Koba, probably, because you can tell from some of the trailers, there's a specific line where Koba's kind of just glaring at Caesar and goes, Caesar loves humans more than apes, so you can kind of tell that he's going to be the one that sparks the apes versus humans thing. He's also the one riding into the fire with dual machine guns. Anyway, there's going to be uneasy... There's going to be uneasy things. No, that was in the trailer. That was in Days of Future Past.
I didn't see that.
Anyway, yeah, you did. You saw Days of Future Past.
I did. I don't remember that scene in the trailer.
How do you not?
I don't know.
Anyway, there's going to be uneasy feelings between...
I block out disturbing images of apes that want to kill me.
There's going to be a lot of tension building, I think. I don't think there's going to be any actual action until the third act of the film. There's going to just be a ton of unsettledness, and then
they're going to build tension.
Yeah, and then all heck's going to break
loose. Set the
loose.
scene in Act 1, build the tension in Act 2, and explode in Act 3.
Exactly.
And then resolve, hopefully, and then have really morbid credits.
What I think is going to happen in terms of spoilers is that we already know that Caesar has a son, two sons in this new movie. There's a baby. There's a baby, and then there's another one. And I'm thinking, since Battle of the Planet of the Apes, Caesar's son dies, I think Caesar's son is going to die in this. I could be totally wrong, and they could do something totally different, like end up killing Cornelia or something. But I'm leaning towards the fact that since a child died in the fifth Planet of the Apes movie, a child's going to die in this one.
Yeah, and that was part of the machinations against him.
Exactly. And that's what's kind of sparks feelings.
We're going to go and see this tomorrow.
Wait! With a third movie already planned to be released July 26th, 2016, 29th, 2016, I don't think, and this movie getting rave reviews from everyone, I don't think this movie franchise is going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, we're going to have it for a while. And this time, it's going to be in direct competition with, well, not direct, it'll be an off-year competition with Star Wars. And so the thing about, well, I don't know if we got time for this, but Planet of the Apes, the original series, was huge. It was
And then Star Wars
phenomenal.
blew it out of the water.
Well, it was the Star Wars. There were the toys, there were the cartoons, there was a TV show. It was just a huge part of the culture up until Star Wars came along.
Yep.
And,
so that's going to be a revival of foes, basically. Not foes, but...
They're two different takes. One is fluff.
There's never been a Planet of the Apes movie the same year as a Star Wars movie.
One was designed to be a mindless adventure. Farm Boy saves the universe. That's Star Wars. And then the other one was a reflection on social issues of the time. And am I talking loud enough?
You're probably... No. You are. Don't worry. It'll play back louder.
But I don't have a bunch of squiggly lines.
Well, now you do. Go ahead.
All right. So, but Planet of the Apes had the deeper social commentary. And I think the sci-fi audiences today are looking for that kind of meat and grist and stuff in their stories. So, yeah, I think these are going to be really popular movies to come. And... then they'll have Star Wars, yeah. which you need something to flush the toilet once in a while. You need something for fun and fluff, and we'll get that. So it's a great time to be a dork and have movies to go to.
What's coming out in 2016 though is Star Wars, a Star Wars movie of some kind, Planet of the Apes, which is so far just titled Planet of the Apes.
There's going to be some Marvel movies.
There's going to be.
There's probably going to be a DC movie.
2016 is going to be Captain America 3 and I want to say Batman vs. Superman. Or was that next year?
Yeah, that's next year.
Who knows? There's going to be DC and there's going to be Marvel. I'm more Marvel than DC, so...
Alright, so we're going to start saving up for that summer early.
Yep.
But tomorrow, we're actually going to go see this new Apes movie and have a follow-up podcast that's nowhere near this long.
How long do you think we talked about Rise of the Planet of the Apes alone? I feel like we spent the most time on that one. That one and the first one.
Well, it's the most relevant to, what we're talking about.
I think we talked about the first one and the second one.
All of this is in anticipation of this new movie.
Yeah. Go see the new movie. I'm sure anyone who listens to a podcast that's 2 hours long about Planet of the Apes is probably going to go see the movie.
This podcast is longer than the movie.
No, the movie is 2 hours and 10 minutes long. We could end it right now if you want, unless you have something you want to talk about for another 10 minutes.
4 minutes. No.
Yeah, 10 minutes. You have anything?
My head is swimming. I can't believe you get me talking this long. I thought it was going to be a horrible idea having me on a podcast.
Turns out this was the greatest idea and could probably get us more subscribers than Sheldon. Because I am the new age of nerdom. You are the old age of nerdom. It's like, you know what I mean. You know what I'm trying to say, though. It's like comparing...
I bring maturity and
times.
Dignity to this childish podcast.
Talk a bit louder.
All right. And also, I think next time, I've got recording equipment downstairs that
we're gonna try
we might be able to do something where we don't have to stick our faces in a damn laptop.
We do it all the time anyway. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is that we have you more often, even if it was 3 people like me, Sheldon, and you, we would have, like, the person of the past from, like, the Star Wars generation. That's what I'm trying to say. We would have the Star Wars generation and the golden age of... Not golden age. What age of comics was it back
There's
then?
no way you're going to finish this thought...
What age of comics was that?
Without referring to me as some kind of geezer. So, let's wrap this up. Promise that I'll be part of some future broadcasts or something that are not 2 hours long, where I don't talk until I'm dizzy.
You're going to be part of a ton. Is that why you don't talk at all?
Part of a ton.
Because you're going to be like, because you get too dizzy. Is that why you don't talk a lot?
Well, no. Usually other people don't shut up long enough.
Okay. So, well, this is the perfect thing to get your angst out of. An hour-long podcast.
I have no angst. I'm at peace.
This is a special edition podcast because of the movie, and it's like about an entire franchise. And I feel like this went better than what I had scripted for the overview.
You had a script?
Yeah,
That
but
could
it
have
was
helped
awful.
a lot in some of those awkward spots.
Really not at all.
No.
It was awful.
Well, thank God I was here.
Yep. So